On live now from Fox. We are going to be keeping an eye on this shot, but I do want to bring in a special guest here on live now from Fox. This is Jeremy Rosenthal, trial attorney, to kind of really give us some insight on a lot of moving matters right now for Donald Trump. Obviously, he is going to court here for this hush money case, but today is also when that mega $454 million bond is due. So, Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox, as this is setting up to be a real big Monday for the former president.
Slightly. I think his bond case is due today. He's got to pay that bond, or they can start collecting his assets and start forfeiting some of his assets. So a lot of attention on him today, to be sure.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Obviously, I mean, this is a huge number that we're talking about, $454 million. And Donald Trump, you know, of course, in the past has always talked about his wealth and how much money that he has. But coming up with that much money cash-wise is difficult really for anyone.
When you're a real estate guy, you tend to be leveraged to the hilt. So it's not surprising that he doesn't have that kind of liquid. He's trying to get creative with it. He's trying to go to bond companies, insurance companies, banks, other benefactors. And so far, nobody else has really been willing to make this problem their. So that's kind of what he needs. I mean, whoever is going to stand up for him is going to have to potentially shell that out. And that's a lot of dough for them, too.
No, absolutely. And if he's not able to come up with that number, what are some of the things that could sort of happen? Well, I mean, could they start freezing his bank accounts, or could they start making liens on properties?
From a collection standpoint, the collections lawyers that I talked to, the bankruptcy lawyers that I talked to, said this is kind of a turkey shoot when it comes to collecting these assets, because you know where they all are. You spent the last 3.5, 4 years litigating over these exact properties. Normally, when you're collecting money, I mean, collections is its own billion-dollar industry, right? I mean, but in this situation, you know where everything is. You know where the properties are. You know where the assets are. In some instances, you know where the bank accounts are. This is the effort that it's going to take to collect certain properties. It's going to take some elbow grease to actually foreclose. If they want to spike the football, foreclose on Trump Tower, have a big party there, or do something like that, that's going to take a little bit of extra work, and there's a lot of due process there. But what they can do is they can just file a judgment lien, attach all of his property, and sit around and wait. And in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whenever it gets sold, that's when the state can collect its money. But also the fact that there's a judgment lien out there can trigger some of his other banknotes. So very problematic. I mean, I think if he doesn't post that bond, I think we could see a cascade of bad financial news for him.
Yeah, that seems like it. Once that starts to happen, then you almost get like a snowball effect. And again, for our viewers that are watching with us here on Live Now from Fox, we're keeping an eye right outside of the courtroom in New York City, where Donald Trump is again going to be back in court here for this hush money case, expecting to find out if there will be another delay, or maybe a possible jury selection date that we could get here for this case. I'm joined right now by Jeremy Rosenthal, trial attorney, to help us navigate these waters of Trump. That is, let's talk about it. He has a lot of court cases ahead of him, but also he's navigating those waters and also campaigning at the same time. So, I mean, talk about a jam-packed 2024. Obviously, he doesn't want the court cases. He wants to continue to just be campaigning here. But I mean, this is unprecedented to be talking about a former president going to these many different court cases.
For certain. And in the New York City case, for the hush money case, What triggered this delay that they're trying to resolve is their star witness is Michael Cohen, the state's is, and anybody who, unless you've been living under a rock, I imagine most viewers on this show probably are familiar with Mr. Cohen, and that the state they have to give away, they have to disclose what's called Brady material, and that's material that tends to prove innocence. And with Mr. Cohen, there's a lot of it. And so if you're going to give Donald Trump a fair trial, you got to give those guys probably his lawyers and his team, probably, I'm sure, thousands of documents about Mr. Cohen alone. So when Mr. Trump's lawyers come to town and say, hey, we need a minute or two to look at this stuff, you kind of got to give it. So I think that's what you're going to hear a little bit about today in the New York hush money case. But yeah, a lot of balls in the air too, because it's a big day with this deadline.
Yeah, and I mean, it could also happen really like maybe at the same time here that we'll be getting news on really both cases here. Now, for the case there in New York City, in this hush money case here, when they have one of their star witnesses as Michael Cohen, the former Trump lawyer as well as fixer for Trump, and to have a star witness that is pled guilty, does that sort of kind of put them at a disadvantage when it comes in the eyes of when a jury is going to get this case?
You're trained as a prosecutor to deal with these things because as a prosecutor, you grow up in a courtroom where sometimes the person who's murdered got murdered in a drug deal, and nobody around is a good guy. I mean, people are in these situations because these are sort of fringe situations to begin with. So you're trained as a prosecutor that a lot of times you're going to have challenges with witnesses like this, the people who are in proximity to crime or allegations of crime. A lot of times they're not the best characters in the world. So everybody's kind of used to this. This is sort of par for the course. In a lot of your federal prosecutions, they have confidential informants, or they'll have people who make a deal with the government and then turn around and testify against your client, and that guy has been involved in some drug deals too. So this is kind of par for the course.
And Jeremy, I also want to get your take here. So many times we see Donald Trump when he goes through those doors right outside of the courtroom. He talks to the media. We're expecting him maybe to make a couple of statements before he walks in. And it just is always a surreal moment because he's bashing the judge, bashing the prosecutors just seconds before entering that courtroom where he's going to be going through the motions.
Almost makes you wonder if doing that and getting angry with everybody and doing that is a good legal strategy or not. I don't think I want my clients doing that. So that's also why in the New York State case, I mean, he's asking judges to intervene because he's saying he doesn't have the money, and this is potentially why not a lot of folks in New York are bending over backwards to give the guy a break because every time he walks out of the courtroom, he's got some sharp words. It's America. He's got the First Amendment. And to be fair, I mean, look, in defending cases, laughing at the judge's jokes, laughing at the prosecutor's jokes, kissing everybody's rear end, that's not a strategy either. You got to come to play. But you got to also keep your rhetoric in check, and you kind of got to keep things toned down. But the man is where he is for a reason, and he's going to play it his way. He's made that clear. So as a client, that's if he was my client, I mean, that's just kind of one of the things that comes with the territory, and you just sort of watch it through your fingers, Yeah. But yeah, that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, you could totally tell he is the ringleader there. And for his attorneys, do you think when he goes to the podium or he goes to the cameras, the attorneys are thinking, oh, what's he going to say now? Or do they just know, we know he's going to say something?
I think the first one, but I think they have a good idea what he's going to say. But then I think everybody gets pretty surprised. But there's nothing that I mean. Look, the lawyers in the case, They took this case. They knew what they were getting into. And I think that they also kind of have a strategy built in of how they're going to manage that part of it. But the good news is this. So for like all of the things that Trump says off the record, Trump said last Friday, I think it was, that he has the money, he has the cash, which is exactly the opposite of what his lawyers are trying to say on the bond case. But none of that's in what we call the record, right? The record is what the appellate judges are reviewing, and those are typically all going to be things that were testified to about the trial. So the judges couldn't consider that anyway if they wanted to. It's probably a soundbite that the lawyers really didn't wish that they had, but it doesn't. I don't think it hurts Mr. Trump legally, and I think he's probably savvy enough to know that. But again, as the lawyer, it does kind of make, you know, the hair on your spine sort of stand up a touch.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't even imagine here. And for our viewers, when we are talking not only about the hush money case, but also this deadline today of the $454 million, if you can just maybe explain to our viewers a little bit, I mean, that number is just so high. How does that number even, like, let's say, how does it even get over 100 million to go to 2? How does it get to 454?
Okay. This number is broken down in a couple things. First is going to be the judgment that was taken against him, and that's a function of all the math that the attorney general showed the judge and that the judge agreed on. So that's the first part of it. But when an appeal is pay to play, okay, and I'm going to kind of take a step back here if I can. The reason why you have to pay on a civil appeal is this. Because there's a lot of deadbeats out there. 80% of judgments, American Bar Association says 80% of judgments are uncollected.
Oh, wait, Jeremy, hold on one second. We're seeing the former president here. Let's see if he's going to come up to the cameras. I'm opening up the audio. Let's listen.
Are you getting a bond today? This is a witch hunt. It's a hoax. Thank you.
All right, so very brief there, saying it's a witch hunt and it's a hoax here. So before we talk a little bit more about the 454, Jeremy, let's just bring you in right here. Not as long as we thought. We thought maybe he would speak for a little bit longer, but saying just a couple of words there that this is a witch hunt and it's a hoax, and then going inside.
I think his lawyers will live with that. I think we were talking about all the potential damage he could do, and it's early in the morning. I don't know if he's a coffee drinker, but it seems like it's all business. He's got a big day ahead of him, and made his talking point, and he went in.
Yeah, definitely. But let's now go back out to the 454. You were explaining in great detail.
Right. So about 80% of judgments are not collected, and that's for a lot of different reasons. For instance, a lot of people who don't pay their credit card bills get sued by the credit card. That's going to be a judgment that's just going to sit there, and nothing's going to happen to it. But what happens is our appeals courts get really overburdened with a lot of criminal cases. They're resolving DNA questions. And what they want to do is they're going to say, look, you get a trial if you're getting sued, and that's all fine and well. But if you lose that trial, we're not going to let you use the courts as a way to evade. We're not going to let you run the tab up on the other side, because now they've got to involve their lawyers for another round. So the 454 is comprised of that initial part where the judge says, here's your liability. And there's also a part that's built in there for interest that is going to accrue over the time. So essentially what the courts are saying, look, if you are going to appeal this, then when this is all over, the plaintiff is going to get their money. You don't have to appeal this if you don't want. A criminal appeal is free, and you can get a court-appointed attorney. So our appellate courts are for everybody, but the law just says because so many judgments go uncollected that the courts are going to say, look, you got to have if you're going to use everybody's time on a second round of litigation, you're going to have more of a skin in the game, because we're not going to let you get through all this and then everybody gets stiffed afterwards. So I don't think the law and these types of cases, if you're American Airlines, you can handle probably a judgment like this, and then file the appellate bond, or if you're Google or Amazon, you can do it. But your real estate folks, again, just tend to be highly leveraged. That's why you see the lack of cash. And I think Mr. Trump would tell you that a lot of these bonding companies that he's tried to go to have caps. I mean, these are companies trying to make a profit too. And it wouldn't shock anybody if they could just say, well, we can do 100 million, but we can't do 454. So I think that's a very real problem for him too, as we can see.
Yeah, that is so true. And we are at the top of the hour here on Live Now from Fox. For our viewers just joining us, welcome to Live Now. I'm joined by Jeremy Rosenthal to help us navigate. We just saw Donald Trump go inside of the courtroom today. So this is about his hush money case. We could get a trial date or a potential another delay in that. Now that it's already been delayed, Jeremy, for 30 days here. For the judge, now he's going to look at the case here, and is the best bet to go with that we're going to get a trial date like in 30 days?
I don't know. I think Trump's lawyers are going to say, hey, let's push this thing past Thanksgiving. If I was Trump's lawyer, that's what I would say. Maybe point out that they want to try this thing as late as they possibly can. The prosecution is going to want to try it as early as they can. And there's other cases, I'm sure, in front of this court with its docket. But obviously this one is a little different for obvious reasons. We'll see. I don't know that 30 days, maybe yes, maybe no. But we'll see. This case did seem to be on the fastest time track of everybody. We were actually set to be in trial, I think today was probably when they were going to start jury selection. Wouldn't surprise me if the court set this at a rather quick time, but you can expect that little game within a game. The defense lawyers are going to delay, and the prosecution's going to push. That's what we're going to see here.
And how long would you expect this to go? Like 30 minutes as far as today for the motions that we'll be hearing?
Scheduling can be really hard when you have a lot of people like this. If this is the first time that everybody's getting their calendar out and trying to mix and match dates, you've got witnesses to consider, you've got experts to consider, you've got the lawyers to consider. Obviously, the lawyers' time being the most important of everybody in the universe. So you got a lot of things to kind of to juggle. And then, I mean, legally, other criminal cases can take priority. Jail cases can take priority. If there was a pre-existing case where you've got an inmate, well, the law is going to give that priority even over Donald Trump because that's somebody who's incarcerated. And we don't know what the court's docket and calendar looks like going over the next 6 weeks anyway. You would think that they would have budgeted for this. It'd be nice to hear something in the next hour or so.
Yeah, that is what we are all going to be looking at too, and we'll see just what happens. We'll hear the news from inside of the courtroom, and then, of course, maybe see Donald Trump speak to the media, and hopefully maybe a little bit longer. I know his attorneys might not want that, but here in the media, we definitely want that. We want him to speak to the cameras, and we'll see what happens next here. But Jeremy Rosenthal, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now. We always appreciate it, and thanks for giving us some great insight on this Monday morning on a very busy Trump day.
Have a great morning.